Hello, I hope you're well. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a bit of a hybrid. It's kind of a book haul and a TBR. I asked my friend to buy books for me. I don't know if any of you watch beauty YouTube, but if you do, you might every once in a while see these videos where a friend, a partner, a sibling, or spouse buys makeup for that beauty influencer who then has to create a look with whatever loot they acquired. And so I figured, why not put a bookish twist on it? And so that's what I did. I reached out to my friend Lyss and said, hey, would you buy books for me? And when she agreed, I Venmoed her money, and within 5 minutes she knew exactly which book she wanted to send my way, and a week later they showed up on my doorstep. So we're gonna go through the books she selected, talk about her reasonings behind them and my feelings about these books, and hopefully it'll be a fun video to watch. But why don't we dive right into it? So the first book that Lyss chose was Darius the Great is Not Okay by Adib Khorram, and she chose this because she said that even the most stringent YA haters would fall in love with this book. And I feel like I have to come in my own defense. I don't hate YA. Like, I don't. I just don't gravitate towards it. And truth be told, I really never have. Even when I was the same age as the protagonists in YA books, I tended to be reading Tolstoy and the Brontes and, oddly enough, Michael Crichton. It's just something that has never had a huge draw for me. That being said, Lyss speaks really highly of this book. She says that it deals with issues of mental illness. I believe the character Darius is clinically depressed. It also deals with family and friendship and identity. From what I gather, it is about Darius visiting Iran for the first time and befriending this other young man who I think lives in close proximity to him. To be honest, this isn't a book that I think I would have ever crossed paths with on my own. I can probably count the number of times I've gone into the YA section of the local Barnes and Nobles, and I tend to read more books with female protagonists than I do male protagonists. So this is probably a book I would have just walked on by. And so, keeping that in mind, I'm actually kind of excited that Lyss is introducing me to this book. I really want to see how I respond to this one because I do think that I could enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to reading this soon, I hope. So Lyss's other pick was Exit West by Mohsin Hamid. She chose this because she said the writing is bone-achingly, that's her exact word, good, and that I would cry in places, which, to be honest, doesn't take much. I cry at the drop of a hat with both books and movies. I get very, very invested in the characters' lives. So this book I know I saw on BookTube when it first came out. I don't really know much about this book. From what I gather, it is about these two young characters who are living in a country that is on the brink of civil war when they decide to pack their bags and leave. I have to say, I'm a bit more nervous about this one than I am the previous book. The synopsis isn't really grabbing me in a way that I would like it to, but it's also speculative, and I know that speculative fiction is very broad and kind of encompasses a lot of subgenres, and I know that I've read and enjoyed books in several of those subgenres, but I don't seek out speculative fiction, and I can't really get a sense of what is speculative about this from just the back cover. So I'll be interested to see what my take on this one is once I do read it. So next up is The Power by Naomi Alderman, and Lyss's reasoning. I have been telling you for over 2 years to read this book. Enough said. Read it already, damn it. In my defense, when she did recommend it, I know I bought it because I did have a hardcover copy of this book. I tried to find it on my bookshelf and didn't, and so I feel like I must have unhauled it. I obviously found this book compelling because I did own it, but apparently not compelling enough at the time to read it. It is another speculative fiction type novel, but it seems to have more of a feminist lean to it. All I really know about it is that young girls and women have the power, and that power seems to be capable of harming or even killing people. But beyond that, I have no idea. I see that Margaret Atwood gave it a little book quote, so I feel like it's kind of in that same vein as an Atwood novel, or that would be my guess. It definitely needs to go to the top of my TBR. You guys know I am a sucker for feminist writing and feminist literature, so I feel like this one needs to happen ASAP. So yes, Lyss, I will read this, damn it. The next book is A Rogue of One's Own by Evie Dunmore, which is part of the A League of Extraordinary Women series, and Lyss chose it because she said historical fiction but make it romance, and she also just wanted someone to talk to about the book. From what I understand, this is another book set in the Victorian era, and the main characters are suffragettes who have acquired a publishing house that somehow fits into their plan for a parliamentary coup, but in walks Lord Ballantyne, who is the love interest and also the obstacle that Lady Lucy, who we were introduced to in book 1, must overcome. I think it will be really fun if the first book is any indication of the second, which hopefully it is. I think it will be delightful and a nice change of pace for me when it comes to historical fiction. I tend to read heavier, more serious historical fiction more frequently than this, although many of my historical fiction do have romance plot lines in them. That is not generally the main focus, so that's definitely a change of pace for me, but I think I will enjoy this one too, so thank you, Lyss. So the next book is The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon, and Lyss said she picked this for me because it is historical fiction, which is my comfort zone. It's different for me though because it is focused on the golden age of comics, and Lyss loves comics. She probably knows more about the Marvel universe than anyone I know, so this is totally a Lyss pick. She said it's ranked among her top 10 or even her top 5, so this is super high praise coming from her. I think that'll be really cool and unique about it. I really enjoy Marvel movies, but beyond that I know nothing about comics, and there seems to be a little bit of truth in this fiction in that it's based off of things that actually happened to these like legendary comic creators. I think that because of the setting, I will really enjoy it. I think I enjoy reading things about New York City too, although I don't read all that much about it. I tend to focus more on Europe. But I really do think this will be enjoyable. It is the thickest of the books that Lyss recommended, but considering it's one of her favorites, I'll definitely have to read this soon. I have high expectations, let's put it that way, for how I will feel about this book when I read it. This next pick for me is Crossing by Pajtim Statovci, and it is translated from Finnish, from what I gather. And Lyss's reasoning for it was that she has been telling me to read it, but only for about 9 months. So I'm feeling the shade. Lyss, I promise to be better when you recommend books for me, I promise. I remember seeing this on her Instagram after she read it, and there was something about it that really drew me in. The cover I thought was really striking. My understanding is that it takes place partly kind of in the twilight of communist Albania, and the main characters emigrate to Italy. So Lyss says that the book deals with gender and sexuality, identity, the traumas of war, and of exile, essentially. And those themes appealed to me. I mean, communist anything is kind of up my alley because of my fascination with Russia and Russian history. I have to say that this is a book I probably would have plucked off a bookcase if it had been set at an earlier time period. If it had been set, say, in the 40s, the 50s, maybe even the 60s, it probably would have lured me of its own accord, but I am super excited that she put this in her little book order for me, because I really do think that this is going to be a really interesting book, and I'm really, out of all the books, I think this is the one that I'm most excited for, so good job, Lyss. So, Lyss's last pick for me is Kindred by Octavia E. Butler, and it is a graphic novel version of Kindred. And her reason for picking it is that what people don't often think about is the fact that the written word is also a visual art form. So that, I found that actually really interesting and profound and, dare I say it, provocative. If you watched my unhaul video, I don't have a ton of experience reading graphic novels, and actually unhauled the only one I had at the time. But the colors in this are really vivid and really appealing to me. I've never read anything by Octavia Butler, but I know her name and know she has a huge following, and again, I don't feel that I've heard anyone have anything bad to say about her writing or her stories, so this should be an interesting one. I think the subject matter is definitely something that is going to appeal to me. It deals with the Civil War and also racism in 1970s America, and I'm curious to see how that is approached in a graphic novel. I'm a little bit worried, if only because I believe that Octavia Butler tends to be considered a science fiction writer, and I don't get along with most science fiction. I'm hoping the fact that this deals with historical elements will kind of ground it for me. But once things kind of start getting too out there and woo, I tend to zone out. So we'll see. So with that, we have Lyss's book choice for me. I have to say, I think she did a phenomenal job picking out books that will challenge me but also appeal to me. Lyss and I have very different taste in books. If you couldn't already tell, she enjoys speculative fiction and YA, and those are two genres that I don't usually read, so I'm kind of hoping that this exercise, as it were, will introduce me to some new authors that I would not have discovered on my own. My plan is essentially to weave these books into my reading over the next few months, and so you guys will hopefully start seeing them in my wrap-up videos. But I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Definitely let me know if this is a type of video you enjoy, because I would actually kind of love to make a series out of this. But thanks again for watching, and if you did like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'll talk to you all later. Bye!